Got it?
It's good, Mark. Very good.
The industrial seafood model has led to a depletion of our oceans. But here at Google New York, we have an opportunity to influence and introduce a whole new way of eating and offering our seafood. We believe in supporting wild fishermen, but also believe that we have a chance to reimagine how we farm seafood. So we're working with two local fishermen, Dr. Dish and Thimble Island Oyster Company.
Sean Barrett, and I'm a co-founder of Dr. Dish, which is the first community sport fishery in Long Island. Our members are committing before the season and saying we're willing to surrender our traditional right to demand from fishermen and say, fishermen, go catch us this. It fundamentally changes the question to what have you caught today? So all of our members, the restaurants, they all know exactly who caught their fish, where it was caught, when it was caught, how it was caught, and all this really important information that we believe you have the right to know. And we really disrupted the traditional chain of custody for seafood, which essentially from the fisherman's hands to the end consumer hands in the United States, that chain of custody, the amount of people who are actually taking possession of that fish before it goes from dock to dish, can have anywhere between 6, 10, 20, 30 different sets of hands, where Dr. Dish has come in and really kind of been pierced through that veil and created a new system that's only really 3 sets of hands. It's the fishermen, our cooperative and our management team here, and our members. Companies like Google and forward-thinking organizations are able to kind of say, this is the way that fisheries really should be operated. And so we're psyched to be working with you guys.
So my name is Brendan Smith. I'm here in the Thimble Islands. I'm the owner of Thimble Island Ocean Farm. What's innovative about urban sea farming is that we grow a whole range of species. We grow only things that are restorative, only things that require no fresh water, no fertilizer, no land, no animal feed, making it the most sustainable food on the planet. In a 1 acre area, I can grow up to 30 tons of kelp and a couple 100,000 shellfish per acre. Right? Incredible amount of volume. Our kelp soaks up 5 times more carbon than land-based plants. Our oysters soak up nitrogen. Our entire farms function as artificial reef systems, which attract hundreds of different species. Our kelp can be used as biofuel, so we can actually start powering our farms with alternative energy. I think this model of choosing to grow just sustainable restorative species is really the direction we need to go. There are over 10,000 edible plants in the sea. Our job as fishermen farmers is to learn how to grow them and grow them well, grow good nutritious food. And that's really all we can do. Our job is then to hand them to the brilliant chefs at places like Google to innovate, to create new dishes of the future. What I think of, we're climate farmers, the chefs need to be, develop a new climate cuisine. Stop trying to just search for the fish you want to eat, like salmon, like tuna. Choose to eat different things, move plants to the center of the plate, seedlings to the center, bivalves to the center, and then do wild fish at the edges. We need to reorganize this plate for the future of our ocean.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Barrett. Great to see you all. And thank you for putting this together. Drawdown, Mary and company.
Welcome.
Dr. Goldberg, thank you for a great intro and for leading the league in fumble recoveries with that tech recovery you just helped us out with. I also want to say Sister Carrie's here, a good friend of mine. I see Jason Wiener and Peter Strugatz, Lindsay Olson from Green Wave. Great turnout tonight. I'm really happy to see so many people turning out to talk about kelp. as you guys saw in that video, that's actually a quite old video. But Brent Smith, who's in that video, and we've been good friends for a long time. About 10 years ago, he came to me with this vision. He was thimble eye on oysters at that time, but his vision, which he just described in that video, was that we should be farming vegetables from the sea and things that don't swim away, and creating a climate cuisine. And originally, I began in community supported fisheries in Montauk about 10 years ago. Brent and I both come from deep backgrounds working in the water and in the oceans. And so most of anyone who has over the last 20 or 30 years has seen a lot of changes. And so we were both kind of alarmed and driven to try to make changes and improvements to the systems that we were using. And I think along the way, I've had some great mentors and help. Dr. Gobler has an amazing State of the Bays address, which for anyone who's interested is this Thursday at 7. Very informative and was something that propelled me along on my path. But I think from the kelp perspective, kelp growing perspective, about 5 years ago, Brent started saying to me, like, we needed to get kelp farming moved into the New York area. And so at that time, Mike Dole, who Dr. Gobler mentioned, was an oyster farmer in town. And so at first I started mentioning to him, about kelp farming. He looked at me like I had two heads. He said, no one's ever going to eat seaweed. You're just not going to happen. And so over time, we went out to a few dinners. We started talking about it. And eventually he said, let me get Dr. Gobler and talk to him about it. And then really this kind of magic carpet ride, as Dr. Gobler accurately described, has happened where over the last 3 years, we've seen this very rapid acceleration. All roads do lead to Greenwave. I must say that organization has provided nursery support, all types of technological support, certainly moral support and advocacy for us to keep going. But we are right now at a very interesting place in New York State where we have the first research, I think 16 or 17 total sites right now that are growing all different types, or the same species, but in all different water types, as Dr. Gobler said. And it's a really exciting time, finally, where this kind of vision that Brent Smith, and we used to argue about it, where I was like, I don't think we should be farming anything out of the ocean. And Brent eventually brought me around to see that all farming in the ocean is not the same. His regenerative farming that he described in the video is really has to be as we're moving forward. And I think it's easy to come after Dr. Gobler because he just lays a bedrock of scientific information for everyone. I think, or for me anyway, I should speak for myself, that makes it very clear to see that we need to move and act on this. And I feel like for a few years, I had been egging on like Bren and Greenwave and Mike Dole and the farmers. And I should also correct the record here and say I'm not a kelp farmer. Bren would have a meltdown if he heard that. But I get brought into the formula when it's time where the rubber meets the road, essentially. Now, when you get the science right, when you get the farming right, what do you do with that kelp once it comes out of the water? So I see Jason Wiener is a chef friend of mine from Almond who's on here tonight and is probably wringing his hands wondering when his first delivery of Montauk kelp is going to arrive at his doorstep, and he'll have to figure that out. But that's really where Brent said to me, we're going to do all the groundwork here, build tiers and the structure in New York to get regenerative kelp farming started on a very strong foundation. And I kept saying, like, whenever you guys are ready, get the kelp to me and I'll help you. I'll take the lead with getting it on people's plates, using a lot of our experience and connections from Dr. Dish. And now we are at that point. So I'm going to be lobbying and pushing all of you to hashtag eat more kelp. My good friend Jennifer Jacquette is here tonight. And I know that Scott Bluedorn also have their Eat More Kelp bumper stickers driving around town. And we're starting to get people in their t-shirts and hats and just start to build awareness about kelp. I think Lindsay Olson at Greenwave also got an Eat More Kelp package from us. Yeah. So, and I'm really excited to say a lot of the offshoots from Greenwave's work in Alaska and in Maine right now are pushing very rapidly forward with kelp products that are coming to market. So I know Mary has tried the Akua kelp burger, which is now available. Atlantic Seed Farms in Maine has got a whole interesting menu of different seaweed salads and things that are starting to show up in Whole Foods and places like that. So kelp as cuisine, and this climate cuisine, that Bren Smith's original vision of, like, you know, creating a whole cuisine essentially with the chefs, that centers around foodstuffs that actually lower carbon, pull nitrogen out of the waterways and have a regenerative effect on the ecosystem, is the intersection we've just arrived at. So I'm going to leave some time here for Scott to chime in and for some Q&A at the end. But I would ask you guys to check out greenwave.org for more information on regenerative kelp farming and the whole vision and idea. Also, eatmorekelp.com, where you can find all kinds of good stuff to get awareness built about eating more kelp. And as I mentioned, if you're around on Thursday night, Dr. Goldber's State of the Bays address is a surefire eye opener. It is every year, and one of our top recommended events of the whole calendar year. So yeah, in the chat here, I just saw the Akua kelp burger, and Mary should be able to put some more links in there. So anyone who's interested to try kelp, who's never had kelp, my friend Jennifer and her daughter Zila yesterday were trying out some new kelp popcorn. There's new kelp pastas that are coming online, and you can find, Mary should be putting some of these in the chat right now. And so that's the area where if you're asking yourself, like, how do I get involved? How can I help? How can I help this along? By actually purchasing and trying as many of these new kelp products as you possibly can, is where my job is to really advocate and accelerate that part of market penetration, to where kelp is really becoming a part of our dinner and lunch and breakfast and wherever else you like it. So our mantra is we get by with a little kelp from our friends, and I encourage you all to do that. And with that, I'm going to close and hand it over to my buddy Scott, and then I think we have Q&A coming at the end.
Thanks very much, Sean. That was excellent. And our third guest is Scott Bludorn. He's an artist who draws inspiration from local traditions, something he calls maritime cosmology. Scott is an avid environmentalist with interests in conservation, composting, aquaculture, and biodesign, and is a member of the East Hampton Energy and Sustainability Committee. So Scott, you have said that kelp aquaculture will be a powerful asset in building an equitable and bioregenerative industry for the East End. Can you tell us what you mean by equitable and bioregenerative, and why is that important to you?
Scott, you got to unmute, buddy.
Okay, rookie move there. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having me here tonight. Drawdown, doing really important work. And also hi to Sean and Dr. Chris. Really like that report and a bunch of really cool, great information that I hadn't heard. So that recent research is really interesting. To address some of these questions, so what I mean by a bioregenerative and equitable industry is we have to face a lot of facts about tradition and industry on the east end of Long Island, which has been a fishing and farming community. And unfortunately, the fishing industry is in a pretty rapid decline for a lot of different reasons. Although we do still have a great viable fishery, there's not that many fishermen left. We also know what's going on with shellfish crashes due to a huge amount of problems related climate and also water acidification. So our industries are in decline, but what we need to do is actually look at things like kelp and seaweed aquaculture, particularly to kind of reinvigorate these industries. And we can bring in a lot of people, including fishermen who have been, they've been subject to a lot of laws, a lot of regulation, which is good, but they are also looking for a way to sustain what they do, which is providing wild food. And that's what Sean has been working on specifically. So if you have kelp and seaweed aquaculture as a new industry here, we have the opportunity to bring in aquaculturists who are growing oysters. All the fishermen people who work on and live on the water. And you can even bring in traditional agriculture, permaculture, people who are farming on land. It's a really amazing thing that Green Wave has actually become a nonprofit, and they're taking applications for new farmers. And a lot of these people are traditionally maybe not involved with aquaculture. There's a lot of women getting involved, people of color. There's a lot of indigenous people, people of color, like I said. So we have a really great opportunity, I think, to open this up if it becomes what I think it can be, and which has great potential. A new industry that is also bioregenerative for all the reasons that Dr. Gobler said here. It is such a great sequester of nitrogen and carbon, and it actually is going to help rehabilitate our waters that are in such, they're in a lot of trouble right now. So yeah, I want to add in, that kelp particularly has all these amazing uses, and there's all this great research now that's being spearheaded. And I think it's amazing that we just find more and more uses and more benefits to growing kelp and other seaweeds. And what we need to do now is make sure that we can actually grow this as a commercial product. And that actually is going to require sponsoring legislation. And sometimes it's just as easy as just putting the word seaweed into the existing aquaculture legislation. So that's Fred Thiel's office, which, there is stalled legislation to make that happen. There is a great petition now on change.org that we want everyone tonight to sign to try to raise the idea that we have to put pressure on our elected officials to get these things passed and to support the provisions that we're going to need to create this viable industry here. So that's a lot of what my work has kind of been focusing on. I am a member of the Energy Sustainability Committee in East Hampton, and I've taken this on kind of as a passion project to try to push it forward. And then even in my own work as an artist, I've actually been collecting kelp just from the shoreline for a number of years now, and I eat it all the time. And it's fun because if you go out to Montauk Point, it's kind of the only place you're going to find it locally. But you'll see that there's a lot of people who are noticing that it's there. You'll see a lot of Korean people who have traditionally eaten kelp for centuries. They know that it's there, and they do collect it as a wild food. And I cook with it all the time. I just made a kelp mac and cheese the other night. So it's amazing, what you can actually bring into your own kitchen, and you can experiment with it. And it's also on the design front, this amazing new thing that artists are starting to look at as material. Two noteworthy artists and designers that I've seen are, one is Juliet Lohman, who created this thing called the Department of Seaweed. And she's building these amazing kind of sculptures and biomorphic designs out of kelp itself. And then there's another woman in Australia named Jessie French, who started Other Matter, which is looking at new uses for bioplastics that are directly derived from seaweeds and other kelps. So as a new material, there's a lot of promise, not just in traditional bioplastics, but in design for art and for even packaging. So it's just another amazing use that it's like one of these miracle products like hemp and like a number of other species that we're finding more and more use for. And it's probably just going to keep expanding in that way. So thanks. I guess, are we going to turn it over to questions now?
Yes, thanks a lot, Scott. Really appreciate all your efforts. You've been, as you say, championing the focus on kelp at the Sustainability Committee in East Hampton for a while. And obviously I've been psyched that you've taken that on and helped to be sort of the glue in this sort of kelp effort in a lot of ways. So appreciate that. Yeah, so we have a lot of fascinating questions.